In this lesson, we are going to go over what are quadrilaterals and how do we classify them. So here, you can see that we have five we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a parallelogram, a rectangle, a square, a rhombus, and a trapezoid. The only one that really doesn't relate to the others as closely is the trapezoid. I mean, they all have four sides, and that's the key to a quadrilateral. Over here is an example of a quadrilateral that really isn't any of these. I drew it by hand, and it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. You have your four angles. It's a quadrilateral. So this is a general quadrilateral, but isn't a parallelogram, rectangle, square, rhombus, or trapezoid. A trapezoid has one pair of parallel sides, and to draw that, you kind of would have like a parallel side here and a parallel side here, and then they would kind of connect, and this is what you might see. Or you could see something like this, like you have this L shape, and it kind of comes up, and in this one, you'll note that your top and your bottom are the parallel sides. Now, these shapes can be twisted around, and they can look like this. So you might see them like this, you might see them like this. They could even be at an angle, but you just have to identify that they have one set of parallel sides, not two, but one, and that would be a trapezoid. So let's move this out of our way here. And let's go on to a parallelogram. A parallelogram has two pairs of parallel sides. We'll move these up here so they're not in our way anymore. Two pairs of parallel sides. So we go from the trapezoid with just one pair to a parallelogram that has two. So you'd have, say, your top and your bottom, and then your sides are also parallel. So, kind of like that. What I like to think of a parallelogram is, most people, when they learn about a parallelogram, have already heard of a rectangle. A rectangle is four angles and a parallelogram. So, four right angles and a parallelogram. So in this case, you just don't have those square corners. You have crooked corners. It's like a rectangle that is slanted. And again, it can be tilted, zoomed in, zoomed out like this, but generally this is what it looks like. The sides are not all equal. The opposite sides end up equal, and they also end up parallel. So you can see these are parallel, this is parallel to this one here. They will never ever cross, and that is why they are parallel. So that is a parallelogram, two pairs of parallel sides. And then a rhombus is when you have a parallelogram that has the opposite parallel sides and they're all equal. So kind of like this. And I want to mark these sides so we know that they're supposed to be equal. All these sides are equal. And then also your opposite sides end up parallel to each other so they never cross. A rhombus is like a square that's slanted. So, and again, it can be spun a lot. Sometimes it looks like this, kind of looks like a diamond a little bit. And this is obviously hand drawn, so it's not quite perfect. I doubt those sides are actually all equal. But this would be a rhombus. Opposite parallel sides that are equal. So here's our parallelogram, here's our rhombus, and here's our trapezoid. All right. Now let's go on to a square. Luckily, Explain Everything has a great easy way to draw a square and a rectangle. There's a square, four right angles and four equal sides. The key to the square is that you have your right angles here. Let me use black. Right angles. So you have square corners. That's why they're called square corners. And then all of your sides are equal. Four right angles, four equal sides. And then you can go right up into a rectangle from a square. And you can see a rectangle is just basically a square where you don't have equal sides. So you still have right angles. Your opposite sides in both the square and the rectangle are going to end up being parallel to each other. They will never cross. All four right angles, opposite parallel sides. The only difference is that in a rectangle, it says four right angles and a parallelogram because, yeah, it has all the rules of a parallelogram, but it just has the right angles. And on a rectangle, all four sides are not equal. So in a square, all four sides are. Now, by definition, a square could technically be called a rectangle, but we always use square because it's a more specific name. It's like, oh, that's a rectangle, but all the sides are equal, so let's call it a square. So we indicate that trait that it has. And so those are the five we wanted to cover: rectangle, square, rhombus, parallelogram, trapezoid.